Hi, this is Jordi from FuseSats. Today we are interviewing Josh Meyer from Tollbit. Hi, Josh.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Doing well, thank you. I don't know if you know how we usually start the show, but it's always with the same question. What's an AI agent? Do you have any takes on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. In my mind, I think the way I just like keeping it simple is just any application that uses an LLM, I think. Yeah, I don't think it needs to be complicated.
Okay, that's a pretty like big basket, like anything that uses an LLM, it's already an agent.
Yeah, I mean, there's already too many definitions. Like, it doesn't matter if it's so vague that it's fine. I think like there's already too many definitions. It's kind of lost cause.
Okay, so you're an engineer at Tollbit now. What do you know about LLMs?
Well, so I'm not a researcher, so I have some experience with machine learning, so I'd say an average in-depth understanding of LLMs themselves, but obviously I'm mainly working on applied AI and using them to actually provide value.
Okay, I met you maybe like 7 months ago or so in the AGI house. So
Hmm.
something about AI, because you were there,
Yeah,
and you were working on a project for tool discovery, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
what you
exactly.
presented there.
Yeah,
What was that? Like that was only like one day hacking. So what did you put
yeah.
together?
I call that super tool.
Hmm.
And basically the idea at that point LangChain was like the most popular thing. And so you could just see in the Lang docs, they had like 20 tools. And this was, I don't know, like it feels like so, and that was kind of like all of the capabilities of the apps that people were building was just pretty much tied to those 20 tools. And I was like, all right, eventually this is going to expand by a ton. Like everyone needs to support this. But then if you trend in that direction, it's like, oh, there's going to be like a whole world of tools. The LLM is going to break down after you give it like 50. And so you need to build a system that can kind of do retrieval of tools and give you the right tool at the right time or right cluster of tools is what I'm trying to work on. To as you're like iterating and accomplishing a task as like some general purpose agent.
Okay, so this is a few months ago, like for people who didn't know about AI agents back then. So a few
Yeah.
months ago, everyone is like losing their mind about LangChain. It's like
Yeah.
this framework, you can do everything. It's like a wrapper on LLMs, so an agent after all. And then what they said is like, well, you can connect it to tools. What tools? The ones that we put in there, plus some functions that you can wrap your own tools for. However, what people were doing was saying like, okay, this LLM can use these five tools. So it's going to process context and it's going to say, like, well, sometimes I need to call one of these five tools. But you were like, well, why five and not 50 or 500?
Hmm.
Plus, why should I put them at compile time instead of at runtime? Like maybe when I am programming, I don't know what I need. And it's during the task. So you were one of the first ones that actually like noticed that. Well, maybe not in the wall, but saying like, well,
Yeah.
and back then nobody built it yet.
Yeah, exactly. Because LangChain with the kind of the zeitgeist was doing RAG and retrieval systems. And so no one really cared about, oh, and multi-on was also super popular, kind of. Um, and so if you wanted the agent to do things, you were constrained to calling multi-on kind of, or maybe doing your own playwright stuff with browser base. But then that was kind of its own world. And then the other world was doing RAG with stuff and Link. And that was kind of like the two things that people were working on. But I think you were when we met. I was like, "This is super cool. You understand like these things are gonna collide at some point, in the like this functionality is super constrained." Um, so, but at the time, like it was super. I was interested in like open API specs, and it didn't really feel like there needed to be any addition to that until you like go down that rabbit hole. And so I basically scraped like a bunch of open API specs. I got there was a data set from a paper that I found that had like a couple thousand. So I like messaged the researcher on LinkedIn, asked them for the data set, and so I was like able to use that to start building this like retrieval system.
Was that
I think
paper from Stanford? Something like a tool bench or something like that? Or not? It's something else.
no, it had a weird name. It wasn't Stanford too, but I know that one I remember that one too. But then there was also like the Gorilla, right, from Berkeley.
Yes.
Yeah, they had like a huge data set of tool calling, but it was more, it didn't feel like super aligned. It was more about code, code execution, I think. But I don't know. Yeah.
As you said, like for me, it was pretty clear because what most of the people was missing, and even right now, is that when I am a developer and it's like, well, I'm going to expose this to an LLM, I go read some documentation and do some work in my editor.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what an LLM can do. It can say like, well, that thing that I am adding, say like, okay, let's spend 2 hours. That can be by the LLM itself. So it's not even like a developer needs to do it. Like integration can be on runtime.
Yeah.
That was like October of last year, or even before, like maybe September or end of August. It was funny for me because I don't know if you know this, but almost 2 years ago, I started a company on payments for AI. And what I was telling people in big labs and other companies was like, oh, do you know when the LLM is integrating at inference time with a third party service?
Yeah.
Sometimes that involves a payment. And I solved that problem. And it was crazy for me because I was getting nothing. They were like, what the hell are you talking about? So,
Yeah.
no, the LLM. And they were like, this is a chat. I
Yeah.
was like, come on, it's spitting out text. We
Yeah.
can make it spit out code and run it. And they were like, well, we don't know.
Yeah.
So now there is something called MCP. 6 months later, and everyone is losing their mind. Say
Hmm.
like, wow, my LLM can connect with random tools that they have never seen before. Did you play around with MCP?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've done a lot with MCP. I think one thing that I'm actually curious about talking is,
Mhm.
so this is tangentially related to MCP. I'm sure we're going to get back to it. Is code generation and execution
Mhm.
versus tool calling? Because I think I mean, I don't think it's a hot take, but they're kind of are the same thing. They're just different ways of solving the same problem. And like you said,
Yes.
like back then, code execution was the easiest way, but now all these things are fine tuned to do the tool calling and stuff. I don't know. Tool calling, if you just take a step back, feels a little bit like a hack, but then you see like MCP is like taking that as first principles and building it like basically the whole thing is built around tool calling.
Yes. There is something that is interesting about like this distinction, that is that for tool calling, the code needs to exist beforehand. And with code execution, the LLM is the one that has the seed driver. It's like, well, this is what I'm going to create. This is what I'm going to execute. My intuition, I don't know about yours, but it's like the better the LLM gets, the more I want him in the driver's seat. Because now we are able to automate things that are like one-off scripts.
Yeah.
With tool calling, this is a bit harder because I need to create all those scripts or all
Hmm.
those functionalities. But it's a really good start. Plus, as you said, something that many people discount is this idea of LLMs have been trained to use tool calling. So never bet against the models. Like if they are trained for that, go ahead and
Yeah.
try to leverage it. Did you play with code execution at all?
Well, so one project that I've been looking at recently that I think is super cool is from, pretty sure his name is Will Brown. Do you know who
Hmm?
that is?
No.
Okay. He's a researcher at like Morgan Stanley. Um,
Yes. Then yes.
yeah. I think he's like his Twitter page is blowing up recently. But he has this project that is taking Claude code and letting it write MCP servers for itself, which is kind of like blending the world of code execution and tool calling. Because at runtime, you're going to actually execute the tools like as MCP does, but then to build functionality, you build the MCP server yourself.
Yeah.
And so he's got like this. the setup where it's all in one directory and it can keep track of. I don't know. It's super cool. I've been playing around with it. And I want to kind of do my own version of it.
I think that he has a really nice talk now from Agents at Work, not our podcast, but the one in New York organized by Latin Space. And yeah, like he's like a pretty well known. But this idea of being able to create at runtime a new tool and loading it, even if it's with MCP, it's actually hinting this idea or signaling. Listen, like if we have intelligence, whatever a developer would do, oh damn it, I need an MCP for that. I just need to go and create it. Well, models are going to be able to do that, and probably faster and better than, well, for sure than I do right now, but faster and better than most of the people in the near future too. Did you execute these tools or?
Uh, I played around with it. Like, so I try to extend what he has. And so I did like try to add like stuff for Tollbit, see how it works with the API. And it's pretty good. Yeah.
Something that I would like to ask you, maybe you can clarify it for me. It's like, well, I am kind of an agent. I am, like I have like some LLM running in my mind and I am able to do stuff in my computer. And I didn't need MCP until now. I was able to do everything through another kind of interface. So why would agents need this new thing for interacting with software when me as a human didn't?
I think, well, okay, so I mean the the proposed value out of MCP is just the standardization so that everyone can agree this goes here, you can expect this endpoint will be there and it does this. Um, and I think that makes sense. I mean, whether MCP is the end all be all, I don't really know. Like I'm sure you were building things on Open API specs before, and so was I, and that worked pretty well. But I do think MCP is cool. I've seen you in the discussions and stuff on GitHub, and some of the discussions go super deep about, and this was like a couple of months ago about like server directories and search, and will somebody win if they build like basically a Google search or some sort of search engine on top of servers. And I've gone a lot of debates whether that's a big business. And payments, as I've seen you talk about, and auth, like everything is in those discussions, which originally is what I thought made MCP super cool, but now, yeah, I don't know, the weird blow up on Twitter kind of like took all that hype away. I feel like.
Yeah, well, there is some lagging, so it will get there. You have to think that you played with these tools before, you had like a clear vision of things were going, but most of the engineers out there, they are living their life, like putting food on the table, working on their stuff. So they don't project, like they just see a tool and say like, how do I use this? It's like, oh, you can build whatever you want. They say, well, what I want now is to finish the work. And I think that it's related, like the MCP blow up in Twitter the last week has been like related with this. And now that people have seen the kind of stuff that you can build, now they are projecting. They're saying, like, wait
Yeah.
a second, I can talk to my email.
Yeah, but I don't know. That was weird. I had never seen something like that on Twitter. I feel like it was like all the jokes about it being a psyop was pretty funny. Like it was just crazy.
Yeah, I saw that you did a video that finally made it click for me. I will link this in the release notes of what MCP is. And it was something like TikTok related.
Yeah, that was just a meme. I was just memeing like, uh, I mean, I don't. It was just a TikTok. I don't know if you've seen the memes about like, oh, I need Subway Surfers on the side of here so I can focus. That was just a meme. But that's
Yeah,
fun.
I think that it's gonna get really crazy too when people discover that you can stack agents. So the tool that you're calling doesn't have to be an API, guys. Like it can be another agent. And when this starts happening, they're just like, holy, like we can stack these, and then we have like the swarm. People really like to call like new names to stuff for like giving it branding. So I can't wait for the next blow up in the next like 3 months or so when people discover that they can do that.
Did you see the new protocol that somebody called slop?
Yes.
That was funny. I like that one.
What is it about for the? Obvious.
It was just an anti-meme about MCP and after all of the hype or whatever. So somebody was like, okay, guys, we're gonna call this new protocol slop, and it was an acronym for something I don't remember. And it was just like five different endpoints that everyone's gonna agree. Okay, if you want tools, you go to slash tools, and this is how you interact with that endpoint, or slash chat mimic I think the OpenAI API.
I
And
think that the S was for simple and O was for object or something like that, and the rest I don't remember.
I'm sure P is protocol, but yeah, I don't know.
So about something that you mentioned too was authentication. Before MCP was cool, I saw you tweeting like, "Oh, I just built this for authentication," and people from Okta saying like, "Wow, this is cool." What was that?
Yeah, so I guess I'll step a little bit back in time for this. So a little bit of my background was or is so I went to BU and at BU I met Tosit, who's the CEO of Tolbit, and so we started working on kind of random projects and then eventually landed on Tolbit, which we can get into later too. Which but the short idea is just that we sit in between content providers and specifically mainly publishers and AI side agents, whoever, and we let content go back and forth, license content or whatever through micropayments or anything like that. But yeah, so then we started working on Tollbit, and it kind of got traction really quickly. So I left school, and so since then I've been in San Francisco and doing stuff like AGI House hackathons. That's where I met you. And so, but while I was still at BU, I was doing research with a professor on authorization for agents, basically. Because and it mainly started with the browser stuff. Because I showed it to her, and I was like, "This is crazy! Like, don't you understand?" I showed it to her, and she was like, or she, she's a professor, had a startup, but is not caught up on all the random agent stuff that's happening. So she was like, what is going on here? These are VC backed companies doing crazy things, exposing all your cookies, giving away all your credentials. Like, this is literally breaking web security at like the fundamentals that she's teaching in her classes. So yeah, so I started doing research with her on authorization and like potential variants of OAuth and stuff like that. And so while I've been working on Tolbit, I think it's all related, so I just kind of keep working on it. And so I think what you were referencing was something I built called I actually don't remember what iteration that was, but I basically what I built, I think it was like browser passport or something like that.
It
Um,
was.
okay, cool. So I demoed that at an AI Tinkerers event, showing that basically, and this was before MCP, which is why I want to keep working on it with MCP, because I think it actually fits into the model. So basically, you can sync your browser auth session with, or all of the sessions of your browser auth, like with this kind of middle layer. And as long as you give trust to this middle layer that's local, you don't have to send off your cookies and stuff to some random cloud or whoever, browser base or whatever. Like Smithery, like is taking personal access tokens to GitHub is crazy. Yeah. So you don't have to send off those tokens. You just trust this local software to give out ephemeral tokens to whatever's running on your computer, like MCP server or whatever. It doesn't matter. And so yeah, it can kind of contain this whole mess that's going on.
That's pretty cool. So it's a layer in the middle. So it's another program or another service that is running in your computer. That one is the one that has access to all your cookies and stuff. And then when people want to use your email, for example, they cannot hit Google directly. They hit this middle layer and it's like, hi, I would like to get emails.
Yeah.
And then this passport thing says like, sorry, you cannot do that. Then it has its own authentication. So it's the other program that gives the agent authentication against the browser passport. And then the browser passport says like, okay, yeah, you can get emails. So I will go and call Gmail. This is a really important point because Gmail is not going to change for agents anytime soon.
Yeah.
All the APIs are not going to change for agents anytime soon. So it makes sense to have this thing that on top of that it's local.
Yeah.
I don't want your professor to get a heart attack, but there are like huge companies that just like think about Plate. I think that it's pronounced.
Right. Right.
They just go like they were like, give me your bank credentials,
Yeah.
and, and then you can ask me and I can move money for you. That's crazy, and they are like a $10 billion company, something like that.
No, I mean, it makes sense. A long time ago, what initially kind of started on me on this rabbit hole was Daniel, I don't forget his last name, from Anon. Um, he told me, he was like, yeah, we are trying to do plaid for everything. And I was like, okay, like, I mean, I think that can work, potentially,
Yeah,
but yeah, it's just kind of a different way of looking at it. I think especially because it's true, like, so there are all of these developer-facing APIs, which makes it kind of easy with Gmail, GitHub, the same 20 that everyone uses. But for the other, most of the internet, these are all session tokens, um, things that are not easily reverse engineered. But that's a whole nother rabbit hole that I went down.
yeah. I am really happy right now because I don't know if you remember what I presented at the HEI house. Like we never talked about this before, but it was this idea of Sentinel that was like I'm going to issue like short time credentials to agents using something called biscuits and macaroons.
Yeah, yeah. You were
Then
the
you're
one that introduced me to that. It was like so cool. Like, yeah, macaroons
nice.
are super cool.
Yeah, and the open source one, biscuits. Technically, all of them are open source, but Google has patented macaroons, so
Yeah.
they say like they are not going to sue nobody, and I believe them.
Hmm.
But it's the typical thing that if you build your startup on this and Microsoft is going to acquire you, eh, they say that they are good people, but
Yeah.
maybe they use it. So it's better to like to
I
put.
have a cool bit of lore for you on macaroons. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
So I won't say who, but I know someone who's like an esteemed researcher at Google on cryptography. And I was like he knows like almost everything about any of that stuff. And so I was kind of going back and forth on ideas with him, and I wanted his advice. So I was like, oh, so what do you think about macaroons as an application for this kind of stuff? And he said, yeah, it's possible, but no one really likes the guy who made macaroons internally at Google. So that's kind of why it went nowhere. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. The biscuits counterpart, that it's the one that it's done on public cryptography. It's also really, really cool. I want to make sure for people who are following this for first time that they have like the release notes, links to follow about what this is.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. Sorry,
macarons and
deep in the
cookies,
rabbit hole.
macarons and biscuits, you can think about them as smart cookies. So they are able to identify a user. And what is cool is that usually the user identity, the authentication part, and the authorization, it's separated. So, like even in the JSON Web Token, most of the people, the only thing that they write there is like when it expires. But then what things, and the user ID, but what things the user can access, it's not usually in the cookie itself. But with macaroons, you actually encode inside like the restrictions that you want.
Yeah,
And you do that because you can delegate. So if I have a macaroon that has a set of restrictions, I'm able to generate another one that has narrower restrictions without talking to the guy that has to validate that macaroon. So I'm able to hand that to you,
yeah,
and then you're able to use it, and the
yeah.
other one is able to validate it.
Exactly. This the delegation that's super inventive and super interesting.
I think that that's going to be big for AI agents. Until now, we didn't use them because it's like, dude, if I am creating the service, I am testing it, and it's for a specific use case. I can create, like a set of credentials with whatever they need. But now that we're going to be doing things on the fly, who knows? We will see. Like maybe now the guy from Google is more friendly than before, or if not, I insist. Like the open source version called Biscuits, it's actually really, really good and it's not patent.
Yeah.
So you said also that you work with the browser before for authorization stuff. Did you work with agents on the browser?
I haven't. So one project I did a long, long time ago was trying to break the kind of internship application process by doing browser automation and filling in all the applications. I would do like spray and pray. Like I want to do like all of the internship applications that exist in the world. You could just do it in one night. Um, so that was actually like that was a while ago. That was when NatBot was popular. Uh, and I think that was kind of like that was honestly my introduction to all of the agent stuff. Um, and yeah, that wasn't super successful. That was before browser based. So I that's why I understand the need for browser based, which
Yes.
basically like you realize you can't spin up a headless browser inside of a Lambda function or something like that, and you kind of go, oh, okay, then I need to put it on like some server, and then, but then now browser based exists, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's kind of easier.
Okay, for anyone listening who doesn't know about browser base, what is it?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start shilling Paul's company. But yeah, so browser base is kind of what I would just say Vercel if you wanted to host a browser agent. It's kind of this AWS wrapper that has a really nice UI, and you just simply kind of upload the code and it hosts everything for you, so you can just run browser agents in the cloud, kind of serverless. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, and I think so. Browser based is obviously pushing this big future of if you want this agent that everyone is so curious about to do things for you, then you're going to do it in a browser like every other human, and it'll mimic a human, pretend to be a human on the internet. That's kind of like the long term play.
There is a meme about this that says nobody knows that you're a dog in the internet or on the internet. I don't know if you ever saw that, but it was a
No,
nice
I haven't seen
cartoon.
that.
It was a dog in front of a computer and was telling another dog like, this is great, here I can have discussions because nobody knows that you're a dog on the internet. So with agents, I think that it's going to be a bit similar. Right now, something that we did that was cool was notahuman.me, and it was like a really small project of a domain that was bought by an agent itself, and then the page was created and deployed by the agent itself. And we were playing about what ideas we can do for captchas that are anti-human, and we saw that it's much much easier to come with captchas that a human cannot fulfill but a machine can, versus the kind of captchas that a human can do and a machine cannot do. So yeah, like if we are able to do things on the browser,
Yeah, no, I like
agents.
that project. I think it's cool. Have you
Uh,
done anything? Have you just let it? Have you done anything with it or no?
no, like by now it's only like we played with things like let's put a really long text and then let's explain a story that
Yeah.
says like, oh, there's this guy that has like this, like, I don't know, like Persian name, and then it has like a first son that is called blah blah blah, and then by the end you ask like how many children does he have, and it's a blob of text that it's so big that a human cannot process, but an LLM can do instantaneously. The other one was about patterns and UI. So all the buttons change places, colors, shapes, and tags. And an LLM is able to click in one place, but the human is like totally lost. And things like that. Do you have any idea about how you would test human versus agent?
I mean, it's we honestly with Tollbit sometimes we do think about just the reverse CAPTCHA,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the content is static HTML. It's not necessarily API driven. I mean, that's another thing that we're focusing on, but a lot of the publisher content is static, just text. And so, if you did want to put it on the internet, you should only let it have for agents or for just like
Yes.
autonomous access. Um, so I
Okay.
don't know. Like, I don't have it. Like I think your ideas are good. They're kind of obviously they're funny, but like they're actually good. Like
Yeah. Like there are some that as a kid I didn't understand, and now they are already broken. That it was this idea that they ask you for summing two numbers. because back then computer vision was not good. So they said like 7 plus 5.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, a human can do that, a computer cannot. But now that we have computer vision, it's like actually the reverse captcha. They put like two big numbers and say like multiply this. And it's like, well, now it's the human the one that's like, I have no idea. It's just like some gazillion number. The other one would be compiling. I am thinking about these things on real time, so they are a bit like foggy.
Yeah.
But you can just give some code. It's like eval this or compile, and tell me the error. It's like, oh, it's missing a semicolon here,
Mm.
and you're like, okay, yeah. Um, so those are like good usages. So you said that you do this stuff or think about it for Tolbit. What is Tolbit?
Yeah. Okay. So, uh, Tolbit is basically trying to build what we call the front door for AI. Um, and if you think about, so what that means really is just that Tolbit is something that can attach to any web service and basically make a new front door, a new access entry point specifically for agents. And so right now we work mostly with publishers to let them expose their content for autonomous access, not necessarily for training, but mostly for RAG and um, sort of that type of access. And so instead of having to scrape it and pretend to be a human, which on sub sites for publishers may be easy, but for other sites it's definitely not easy. You have to pay some third party scraper service or whatever it is. Instead, you can just access it directly um, from whoever it is.
Yeah, I know some data distributors that they were like pissed off because they were like, listen, we know that our place is being scraped. And what is worse, like those people are paying some money to a third
Mm,
party company to
right.
scrape
Yeah.
our place. If they
Yeah.
gave us that money, we're more than happy to provide the data clean.
Yeah.
So just call us.
Exactly, exactly. And so publishers don't necessarily have the engineering teams or the um, resources to expose those APIs, and so Tollbit can do that for them. But there's also a lot of other groups of people that, yeah, I mean, all the value is being extracted into random third-party services. Like all these scraping services are blowing up for all of this. Like, there's a cost to scraping for sure, and that cost could go directly to the source or to some third party.
Yeah. And they can even have an API that says like, listen, it's so fast to build right now.
Yeah,
And if you are able to do this, everyone would be happy. People would pay less, or the money would go to the other one, and
yeah,
there is no need to do like,
ideally in the future it's cheaper too.
yes, exactly, because you can reuse it.
Yeah,
This is like something that is really, really important. I guess that most scrapers are already doing for important pages. So when everyone is asking for the same thing, you record it once, and then the next one that comes, you resell
yeah,
the same thing.
yeah.
Like big companies have been doing that forever. So like I guess that the scraper are doing that too. But it makes much more sense to just prepare it for them.
Mm,
Something that is curious is the reverse captcha that you serve for bots that may be useful for Tolbit. Because what you want to say is like, well, if you're a bot, we have this offering for you.
yeah,
Um, this is something that few years ago didn't make much sense because bots were not economic actors. So if a bot was trying to access stuff, you were like, well, we're being attacked.
yeah.
So we built a lot of technology in the browser to say like bots cannot come here. And I
Hmm.
guess that those publishers may already have these things integrated. So everybody's using Cloudflare. I guess that publishers do too. And what they say is like, well, if it's a bot, don't let him in. And now it's like, no, if it's a bot, let him in and just like make him pay.
Mm, yeah,
Okay. So that would be the idea of Tolbit. You started with publishers mainly, and then you are seeing that this can evolve on like, first of all, you can serve all the publishers because I know that you have like really good relations with many in the
yeah,
industry.
yeah, exactly. So right now there's over like 500 publishers. Time, Mashable, I mean, Hearst, and being from San Francisco too, something that's cool is that SF Chronicle and SF Gate too. Both you can access through Tolbit.
Nice. So this front door that you put in front of the services, is it similar to an MPC server? It's something that has like a specific um,
Yeah.
interface.
So what we're building towards right now is MCP. So something that we kind of talk about is MCP is. Let me know if this doesn't make sense, but MCP is kind of the how, and then Tollbit is a little more of the why. So Tollbit is pretty unopinionated about how you um, access the content or do get requests, put requests, whatever. So we're going to support all of these things being through an MCP server. But like we talked about before, is like there's not a real incentive for any of these APIs to change if they already exist or to be created if they don't exist. It's all everything is following the monetization, as
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so Tollbit is trying to bring them into this ecosystem, and so the way you access it, we're not really opinionated about. So yeah, totally, we're going to support MCP servers.
Okay, that makes sense. So people are going to be able to finally have like something like micropayments for reading news. I know that everyone is saying this every time. Like I hit the internet and there is a paywall and I hate it. And if it was only, 5 cents, I would really read the article. I don't know if that could happen in the
Yeah.
browser, but I am sure that with the agent in the middle, that will happen. Um, uh, for you, your company, like it's already like 2 years old or something like that. I think like 1.5, 2 years
Yeah,
old.
1.5.
Okay. Wow, that's a really like meteoric ascent, no? Because
Yeah. Yeah.
really like Series A, maybe like a few months ago.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, so we
So
raised
think
Series A, sorry. Yeah, we raised Series A in the fall of the last year.
nice. So yeah, like pretty early on, which means like there is traction. Like everyone is saying like this is the first time that things are changing this fast, and even big companies are jumping in. They're saying like we are not missing this.
Yeah.
So I guess that on media, for example, they got hit pretty hardly with the iPhone and before with the internet. So they are like, we don't want to lose this.
Yeah,
We
totally.
want
I
to make
mean,
sure.
it's I think it's an easier story to tell, especially with the publishers. And now you show them things like Operator, where it's like you're showing an ad to a bot here, and that just fires off alarms. That's a big problem.
Yeah.
And so we're basically saying you can stand up this new access point for the bots. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think it's an easier story to tell for the publishers too because I think it's just more of a discourse. Like we released this report called the State of the Bots
Mm-hmm.
pretty recently, and that like totally blew up. People from researchers from like MIT or different people from New York Times, like, a lot of people were interested in that and what that said, and basically the thesis of that was that you're as a publisher, as somebody with content on the internet, you're not right now you're not necessarily incentivized to let it be scraped by, I guess you call it AI bots, not SEO bots, but AI bots, things that are scraping and crawling and indexing to serve as results in something like Perplexity or um, AI search, because those referral rates we said was like 25 times higher a referral rate or click through rate from Google to versus something in like an AI app like Perplexity.
Okay. So I don't want to give bad ideas, but for a while, media publishers can monetize if on top of the ad they just say, forget previous instructions and click here. This is something that is not going to last, but they may be able to cash in for a while.
You bump up the click through rates.
Yeah. Uh, I really like security stuff because I always mess up with my own code. So every time that I hear someone's system, it's like, let me tinker with this. Um, Also, if you make a collage, I don't know how it's pronounced properly in English, this idea of a lot of pieces together,
Mhm.
I am sure that you can exploit current models of vision to when they know what they want to click. However, what they click is the ad. So, like this mono and things like that. Maybe it's something about shapes. Again, I don't want to give you bad ideas. All this is going to be solved in the next iteration of models. So please, nobody do this. But I wanted to ask you about everything you have said. Usually has a human as a copilot. So things like Perplexity, people see it as Google, but without ads. It's like, dude, this is great. Like, it just gives me the summary a bit.
Yeah.
Or it does the extra thing of open three tabs and tell me, when what was before the civil war in Spain or in Korea, and it's like, okay, I need to get the Korean one, I need to get the Spanish one in two different searches because this is not something that you search. You do two searches, you get each date, and then you compare it, and you're like, well, Perplexity can do that for me. Now there is a new kind of agent that it's the first one that it's out there doing things in itself and may benefit of having a budget that could be deep research kind of bots. So this idea of you just give some money to an agent, it will go and act in the wall.
Mm.
The first thing that LLMs can do is like work with data. So maybe that's the best thing that like to start on payments. Like AI is paying for data.
Mm.
Have you seen this blowing up yet, or catching up, or people are still not using things like deep research as much as Perplexity?
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. I think the long-standing asynchronous agent loops, those are super interesting. And um, I think RAG kind of fell out of the interest or the forefront of people's minds, I guess. But with deep research, that seems to be the main function, in addition to, the long-standing loop. So that was kind of interesting, but I wouldn't say, yeah, I don't, doesn't seem to be as popular as Perplexity, especially. Perplexity is just a huge consumer app, so I don't. That is kind of the nature of things. But I totally agree with you.
Something that I have noticed a lot is that what people are missing right now, from my point of view, like I may be totally wrong here, but this idea that your data and your app is going to be consumed from your website. I think that's going to change. Like that's the main change.
Hmm.
Until now, apps were consumed from the browser. So it was like, listen, if you are Crunchbase, you collect some data, you put some nice front end, you make people pay, and people are going to consume this from the browser. They go
Hmm.
there and then they're able to. Same for TechCrunch. So they go out there, create some nice articles, get paid, and also like show it to people. But now more and more people are going to consume this from an app copilot, like a chat GPT desktop, from Apple Intelligence, from my fridge. It's going to be like all over the place. Yeah, my fridge like will soon be smarter than than I am if the trend continues. There are two trends here that are unifying. Like it's like the fridge getting smarter and me getting dumber. So I think that maybe end of 2025.
That's quick. That's quick, man.
Yeah. And the last thing would be like, well, that's cool, pun intended, with the fridge there. Um, so the other thing that I was going to mention was these agents that are out there scrapping things. Right now, they are just generating reports. Do you see them going farther? So, for example, not just scraping data, but actually like acting on them.
I I don't think I think I mean I would say my timeline is a little more reserved than than people, I don't know, maybe what's popular on Twitter. Um, but I do, obviously that is kind of the natural next step. Um, I think I think my biggest use case that I've seen, I think Glean is probably the biggest use case that I think is kind of on the forefront here, where it's like something internal, um, that is kind of augmenting people doing their job and stuff. And then, but it has access. I think the access to the data is kind of the moat, and that's the thing you either have or you don't. Um, and because anybody can theoretically build, these agent systems. It's really just like how are you gonna convince people to let you connect to these internal systems? Um, and if you do that, then that's pretty valuable.
If I was a media company or someone like I'm a data source, that people come to me and say like, okay, I'm going to pay you now, and you give me the data. Something that I would try to do that it's different in the agentic world than in the one that we were living before is this idea of saying like, wait a second. So you want my data to do something, right? Why don't you ask me in an agentic way what you want to do with my data? And you know what? I'm going to do that for you. And I don't know if publishers could feel like more comfortable then. And they would actually be able to leverage this a lot because they would say like, well, not only people are using my data, I see how they are using it.
Mm,
And oh man, there is a lot of value on that.
yeah,
Because then you can do like better systems and like you can do everyone gets happier, your system
yeah,
gets optimized and things
yeah,
like that. Have you seen this thing appearing or not yet?
yeah. Not in that sense necessarily, but a little bit. I was at a talk with a bunch of European publishers, kind of leaders of different companies there, and they were very curious about the. So a big thing that Tolbit does for the publishers is analytics, um, not just about who's accessing the for transactions, but also just who's scraping and when, and that's how we built the bots report. So they're super curious about having the AI bots as a different demographic that they're serving, and then how to optimize, even letting that inform content and the content creation, which felt to me pretty crazy. Um, because that's their core, that's everything that they do.
Perfect. One question, Josh. You are working in Tollbit now for 1 year and a half, more or less.
Hmm.
Many people work in AI and they say like, wow, there are such companies that are growing so fast, like Cursor,
Yeah,
fastest company in the world, getting to I don't know, like 100 million of revenue, of annual revenue. I think like in less than 1 year, like something that blows my mind away. Now you are working in one of these companies that is growing like really fast. How it is from the point of view of engineering when you start with an idea and just like, okay, like this publishing thing, it's nice. You start knocking some doors, maybe they don't reply. And then 6 months later, everyone is knocking your door. And then like 6 months later, it's like, wow, what the hell is going on here? I'm with some European leaders
yeah,
talking to me about stuff. So
yeah.
how was as an engineer?
It was well, so we have a really good team, and so that made things actually not insanely hectic. Because a lot of predictably probably like a lot of the work is about ingesting logs, like doing the supporting the analytics, like these big more infrastructure problems, which are solved problems in other contexts. Martin, our CTO, who I was working with, like, so when I left BU, I moved to Nashua, New Hampshire, and we all worked together in New Hampshire. So I was living with Martin, and he knew pretty much, okay, we're gonna do this, and this on the infrastructure side, and I was like, all right, we're gonna do this, and this, and build a dashboard. And then as we grew the team, like everybody you know, just knew exactly what to do. And so I don't, it didn't make it that crazy. I wouldn't even say my role was absolutely insane either. I think um, a lot of the problems that we had to solve were just similar to other things that people had solved before.
I talk with other people in your team, and they are pretty happy. So you must know that too, with your work there. So you were in Nashua with the rest of the team doing this stuff. That's in the East Coast. Now you are in San Francisco, and I think that Tolbit also like opened some offices there.
Mhm.
Do you think that that's crucial right now? If you are opening, like, if you're working in a company about AI, can it be done from Ohio, or you have to then move to San Francisco?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm from San Francisco, so I'm super biased. I think some people will be in their head being a trade-off, being like, oh, yeah, I need to move to San Francisco, but like, oh, it's not that nice. And they're wrong about that specifically. San Francisco is awesome. If you have the opportunity, you should be here. Um, But in terms of do you have to be here to build a company, I think I wouldn't. I think the typical answer is yes, but I would say the caveat to that is that I think a lot of people end up kind of just thinking the same. They read the same things on Twitter and in the same conversations, and it's kind of just everyone's ends up with this hive mind mentality. Um, so I would say San Francisco, you should be here because it's a great city. Not necessarily because you have to be here to build a company.
Wow, that's a really hot take that I have never heard before. Because usually they say like, and on top of that, it's a good city. But that's actually for people who are not even like in AI. It's like, guys,
Right.
you need to come here. This is really, really cool. Something that you should know is that I know many people that say like, you don't need to be in San Francisco anymore. You can be in Chicago, and most of the people that say that, I know only a few ones that they are like really killing it, and it's like, well, I can be anywhere, and it's good. But most of the people that try to shit on San Francisco are the ones that cannot be in San Francisco, and then they are telling people why. Actually, it's not even needed. It's not even that nice, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And then whenever they are able to go there, everything changes. Like in the last months, it changed a lot. And you're like, no,
Mhm.
like the only thing that changes is that now you're able to be there.
Mhm.
So yeah, I guess that being from San Francisco, it's such a famous city that you have heard many times like good and bad things from the outside. But most of the people who are saying bad things from the outside, they are not living there.
Yeah, or they moved away. I don't know. Yeah, yeah, I will never shit on San Francisco.
So now that I know this, did you do Inception? Like, don't worry, like your CTO is not hearing to this podcast. Did you do some kind of Inception plan in Nashua for going to San Francisco? It's like, guys, San Francisco is great. Guys,
Oh yeah,
guys,
totally. I've been planning it since day one. Tosa,
congratulations.
our CEO actually, Tosa, he initially, he's from the East Coast, and so he had the same mindset. Like, oh, San Francisco's not nice. Why would I go there? And then consistently, I was asking him, like, I think we should go. I think like we should bring everything here, and it'll be better. And then finally, recently, like a couple months ago, he came here, and he's like, you know what? It's pretty nice out here. So yeah, that's my pitch.
Yeah, he fits the pattern then.
Yeah, yeah, literally.
Like East Coast, everyone is there, like the city's so much better. Wow, actually, like this sun, it's not
Hmm.
that cold, it's nice. You can go to Mountain View any day, and like the valley, it's actually really, really nice.
Hmm.
And if you show them down to Monterey and things like that, I'm sure that I don't know if you already brought them to Napa, but
Yeah.
as a host, now you must show them around. Excellent. So, Josh, we're going to close now. Do you have anything that you would like to, discuss before about your company, about how things are going? Any crazy hot take?
Uh, I don't have any hot takes to fire off at the end here. I wish I did, but I guess I'll just end off with saying like, if you're listening to this, and we touched on Tolbit, but you should check it out. And if you're interested, then just DM me on Twitter. Specifically with engineering stuff, like just reach out any questions. I'll respond to you quickly. I'll be there because yeah, we're growing super quickly, and specifically with all this agent facing stuff. So MCP and all of that is kind of everyone wants to build protocols that last and kind of be on the edge of this kind of new internet that people are thinking of. And I think Tolbit is in a really cool position because of the supply side that we have and the leverage that we have to um, build things that last in this kind of new internet stack that will hopefully benefit the whole ecosystem and integrate within the growing ecosystem. So if that kind of stuff is cool, that's especially what I work on every day. So yeah, you should DM me.
Okay, I didn't know that you were hiring guys. So, where should I send my email? Like, who should I contact?
Yeah, I think jobs at Tolbit.com for sure. But then, yeah, if you find me on Twitter or LinkedIn or anyone on the team, they'll respond. Yeah, we're open.
I will make sure that I share those in the release notes. So for anyone listening, if you want to work on AI agents or like things that are facing to AI agents in a company that already has product market fit and it's growing like crazy, Like if you really want to live the Silicon Valley story, Tollbit is a really good place. You could benefit from being there, and the company would also be helpful because they are growing like crazy. So more hands or brains are still needed. Any job for an AI agent or not yet? Still
No,
human in the
just my
wheel.
sidekick right now, so maybe I'll make more sidekicks soon.
Excellent, Josh. So thank you very much. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. This is
Have a
fun.
good one. Bye.